Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, riding solo, Josh Lander, looking at a day of pretty big baseball slate here on Friday. Going to be looking at a few bets here. I like a lot of bets from one of these games especially, and we'll get into a couple more. Also, we'll review this show here for you guys from yesterday that we went 2-1 on. Feel pretty good about that. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page as always. Continue to follow along with us, coming back to you each and every weekday this regular season of the MLB. Also want you to head to thelines.com, check out the great content we have up on the site right now, and use that odds finder tool to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all of these books giving us bets this baseball season. As I said, 2-1 on yesterday's show, up more than half a unit there. Got Shohei to get his 17.5 outs. Michael Lorenzen also lost that game, so we got a nice little parlay there. Tanner Bybee did get his 5.5 Ks, man. I didn't think he was going to get it. He came back out. I believe he pitched into the 7th and got his last strikeout there with his final out that he before he got pulled from that game, the Guardians game against the Chi Sox. So thank you, Tanner Bybee, because Justin Steele did not get his over 5.5 Ks at plus 115 on DraftKings. I guess the books knew something better there about it than I did, because he's been striking out at a crazy rate and just couldn't get the ball past these Cardinals hitters. So we are 13-14 on the season, finally up more than a unit at least. Always don't want to lose money, right? But at least we're up a unit, 0.2 there as well. So let's jump into the first game I'm talking about here, Philly and the Pirates in a battle for the Keystone State. Not much of a battle anymore, as the Pirates are pretty much tanking at this point. I've got 3 bets I'm looking at. I'll just give them all to you right now, and then I'll get into it. I'm going to hit Philly on the first 5 money line. I'm also going to hit them on the money line, and I'm also going to hit Wheeler to get 6 Ks, at least 6, and then Philly to win on the money line as well. That's a player performance double on FanDuel for minus 105 for 0.4 units. Call me crazy. I really love this game for Philly in this spot. I think Wheeler's dealing a lot better right now than he was. I mean, I know he is than he was at the beginning of the season. And that's a huge reason for why I feel good about backing him in this one. The Pittsburgh bats as well against right-handed pitching have just plummeted. It coincides with when they basically decided they weren't really going for a postseason berth, and they really just wanted to get their prospects up, see how they played. And that's where they've been since July started, and that's why they're dead last in batting average against right-handed pitching. They are 3rd worst in OPS against right-handed pitching. They have the 4th worst weighted runs created plus and the 7th highest strikeout percentage versus a man in Wheeler who's been dealing lately. He started out really bad this season. He had about a 5 ERA or so through much of the first half of the season. He ended the first half of the break at the All-Star break, rather, with a 4 ERA, a little bit higher. He's down to a 3.88 now after really 3 nice starts in a row, and really like 5 of his last 6 starts have been really nice. And the reason is he's just been really good all season, to be honest. His FIP, his fielding independent numbers are really, really good. He's basically the best pitcher in the league with his FIP. I think he's got the 2nd highest FIP right now in the league, and that's throughout all of this ERA stuff that has just been, really bloated throughout the whole year. He leads all pitchers and wins above replacement because he goes into the 7th pretty much every time, at least the 6th. Let's just be very clear, and then is very capable of a complete game. So there's reason to continue to back him for sure. I think part of the reason he's had struggles at times, as well as many of these Phillies pitchers, is that their defense is really bad for a lot of this season. It's getting better, mostly because Schwarber doesn't have to play in the field quite as much, and they got Bryce Harper at first base, which helps a lot. So I feel like they're on the right trend, and the Phillies are going to, I believe, make the playoffs. They're still in a good spot to do so, but they can't lose games like they did a few series ago. So Mitch Keller, in the meantime, like on the mound for Pittsburgh, we know how good he's been, but he's got a complete sort of reverse trend going versus the way that Zach Wheeler has started bad and turned his season around. Keller started great and then turned his season around the wrong way. In his first 10 starts of the season, he was at a 2.44 ERA and a 2.68 FIP. Really, really good numbers. He was at the top of the league. In the last 11 games, we're at a 5.51 ERA and a 4.88 FIP. There was a bit of an injury concern at one point. I think he haven't heard anything since, maybe about like I said, about 11 starts ago, when there was a dip in his velo, and it seemed like some of his pitches started missing a bit more. Like I said, right around 11 starts ago. So his past 2 outings have been the worst by far. He gave up 8 runs to the Guardians, then he gave up 6 runs to the Angels. He's still going deep into games. The Pirates still rely on him to eat up innings for them. I think they're fine having him eat up innings while they would rather not have many other guys need to come into into the game on the mound for them because they don't really care if they win or not, honestly. So they're not trying to salvage anything. And I think it's a good spot to hit, to back Wheeler, hit the Phillies over the Pirates in a number of different ways, like I said. So second favorite bet of the day is my guy Scherzer. I got him at over 5.5 Ks when I was betting on this last night. I'm so sorry I forgot to check if it was still there, but I imagine you can still get him for 5.5. I got it on DraftKings, and hopefully it didn't raise to the 6.5. That's where I start to get scared because they're playing the Nationals, the Mets, and to be honest, the Nationals don't strike out very much against right-handed pitching. Like, they're not good against right-handed pitching, but they also don't strike out against it. So that's why, there's a little bit less. Yeah, you can still get 5.5 for Scherzer. It's probably been juiced down a bit more even. But if you want to take him to get 6 Ks, that's something I feel really good about. I did want to break down a little bit of why the Nats have appeared to be good against right-handed pitching as of late, or at least not striking out. It's because they're not batting against strikeout pitchers. Their last 3 times out, in their last 10 games, they've struck out at least 7 times. They've struck out at least 6 times as a team in 7 of their last 10, have the Nats. In the 3 games that they did not strike out 6 times at least over their last 10 games, the 3 times were against Colorado. Peter Lambert was pitching that game. He has 8 Ks in his last 5, so he's not a strikeout pitcher. Alex Wood also had 8 Ks in his last 5 starts. Right, so less than a K per outing, or per inning, essentially. Really, really bad numbers for strikeout pitchers there. And then the other game was a combo of San Francisco Giants relievers, where they got DeSclafani in there. Gabe Kapler sometimes does this weird thing where he starts the reliever and then gets the if he doesn't like the matchups of the first couple batters, he'll put the sort of one of the relievers in, then bring his starter in, especially a guy like DeSclafani, who's not exactly a world beater. And so it was just a combination of relievers that took on the Nats offense and failed and struck them out 5 times, and as opposed to 6, which is where I need Scherzer in this one, and I feel good about him doing that. The Nats, while they have been decent against right-handed pitching, especially as of late, on the season, they're still bad. They don't create runs. They're in the bottom 10 in WRC plus. They're in the bottom 10 in OPS and slugging because they don't hit the ball hard against righties. I think Scherzer is going to be able to get this by them, not necessarily with ease, but I think he's going to get up to the 6 Ks. I think that the Mets are going to always rely on Scherzer and Verlander to go at least 6, if not 7, 8 when they can get it from them. And I think Scherzer coming in on normal rest, been pitching really, really well as of late. I would feel good about him getting the 6 Ks in this one, which he's done, by the way, in all of 5 of his last 6. He's gotten at least 6 Ks, with most of those being 7. So feel good about that. Moving on to the last game here. Not a sexy game, but I think there's some value to be had in backing an underdog, which I always love doing when I can get some good value on that in the majors here. Detroit to win against Miami. That's plus 130 on DraftKings for 0.3 units. And I'm fading Braxton Garrett. Like, I also like Reese Olson, and it gives me a chance to talk about my fantasy team where I picked him up a little while ago because he was a prospect for the Tigers that I figured they would get in there. He hasn't really topped 5 innings, but he's been pretty much the same picture as Braxton Garrett on the expected numbers and a little bit better on the core numbers there. So Braxton Garrett, 7.85 ERA in July. That's over 18 and a third innings, 3 starts there. So do with that what you will. Obviously, that's huge and bloated. The xERA is at 4.63, so a little bit lower, but still higher than you'd like for Garrett on this Marlins squad that relies so heavily on pitching to win games. And both these pitchers are pretty much the same as of late in terms of really high strikeout rates, really low walk rates. And I still like these pitchers to get touched up a little bit, even though these offenses are so bad. But I just think the way that Garrett's been pitching, you look at the way guys have been hitting the ball off him, a 10% barrel rate above that, an average exit velocity off of his pitches of 92 miles an hour, basically 91.5 miles an hour. And these guys are making hard contact off of him. They're seeing it a lot. Nearly 45% of the time they're getting hard contact against Braxton Garrett. This is all over the last 3 starts for him. So smaller sample size, but something that has been a problem for him all season with guys sort of seeing the ball off of him and him not throwing very many balls. I mean, he's not walking guys because he's throwing the ball over the plate, but when he doesn't get it by guys, it gets hit hard. So Reese Olson's in the same really similar position. He's actually been able to get guys to chase a little bit more than Garrett over the course of the last 4 weeks or so, like we talk about in July. And he hasn't put it all together. Let's be very clear. Like Reese Olson has some work to do for sure, but you feel really encouraged by a 5.5% walk rate and a 25% strikeout rate. And he's getting guys to chase. Like I said, his swinging strike rate over the last 4 weeks has also been in the top like 85th percentile or so. So he's better than people realize because no one's heard of him yet. But I think by next season, Reese Olson's going to be a guy that's getting some decent amount of burn for this Detroit Tigers team. And I think in this one, you can feel pretty good about taking him on the money line plus 130. I think they also have a slight edge in the pen. It's probably about the same, to be honest, the Tigers and the Marlins bullpens, but might give a slight edge to the Tigers in this one. So that's why I like the money line at plus 130. Got to claw and scratch for that value here in the MLB, which I believe we're doing today. So that is all the time I have for you. Continue to like and subscribe and follow along with me. Nate will be back. I just spoke to him. We got just another week of only Josh until we get our guy Nate back to throw some picks in here for you. Get maybe like 5 or 6 of them each show instead of just the 3 or 4 that I have for you. Although I gave you 3 in that Philly-Pittsburgh game today. So hopefully we cash that one and we can feel like we're just winning the day after that. And then we'll everything else will be icing on the cake. So until I see you next, happy betting.